Judge
God,
Smales.
Nathan, just hold your horses. Just hang on a second here. We're coming on. Yeah.
Don't sell yourself short, Nathan. You're a tremendous slouch.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And on your deathbed, you will regain total consciousness.
Oh yeah. You got all these lines just in there, ready to go.
I can quote the whole movie.
It really is the most quintessential and quotable movie of our. It's about
That
as
and
midlife as it
Airplane.
gets.
Those
Yeah.
two movies are the only two on Mount Rushmore of quotable movies.
Do movies even get to be that quotable anymore?
Here's the thing: is Rushmore on Mount Rushmore?
Right.
No,
It's
Rushmore's
not,
not
ironically.
quotable.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
quotable.
And that's more of a millennial. It's not quite Gen X.
Late
Would-
Gen X.
Would Hangover be a quotable? I mean, it's relatively recent.
For me, it's like Idiocracy and Office Space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got
And a
you.
little bit of Tropic Thunder, which will not be
Looks
quoted
like
on
we
the
got
show.
a lot in the chat tonight. Some new faces too. Ed Laprise, welcome. Glad you're with us.
Promise
Going
we
out,
do more
Juliet,
than
going
this. I
back up
promise
in
we
the
do.
chat.
If you're new here,
Yes,
If you're
and
new
this
here,
is
we're
not
sorry.
what it is.
yes, this is not the thing.
Not to say it gets tremendously better, but it is more concentratedly mediocre.
We're concentrating the mediocrity into a very finite space.
So before we go live, since this is a double header, recording back to back, we're going to play the outro video, and we're just going to stay here. So don't, we usually hang up during the outro video, but just stay here. We'll take a little kind of intermission between the two, or we'll be doing this again, and then we'll just go right into the second show. So you don't have to change what browser you're on, or what YouTube video you're on, anything like that. We're just bombing straight through here.
Yeah, if you don't have anything else to do, then we will be here.
Or if you have passed out and it's still streaming, you're good to go. Yeah.
We should at the end of this marathon double header, we should do a sign off with the national anthem and the flag and the. And that's what wakes you up to know you should go to bed.
That doesn't exist anymore, but yeah.
I remember being of a certain age, and the goal was to see that national anthem being played. You don't care what was on TV. The goal was not to fall asleep and watch the national anthem. So
I am so lame. I've only been in a bar at closing like once ever.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. See, this is what we do between the shows. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, Ed, thanks for joining us. Sorry. It's entirely optional to join the live shows. It's fun because you can participate, and we like bringing in comments. But yeah, this is it. This is what you get. So
yeah, and this next, the first of the doubleheader, this is going to be a battle.
Spirited.
I did realize that we put the drinking show first.
That's right.
I mean, it's not like we're heavy drinkers on anything else, but it's still kind of funny to me. So.
That's what I forgot. It was my drink.
Do you want to take time to go get it?
No. We're gonna push through.
All right, let's do it.
You got to deal with the sober me.
2 hours, man. Yeah.
Maybe in the break.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast. What is it like to become a pilot in midlife? The challenges are unique, but so are the rewards. Hosts Ben, Brian, and Ted talk learning to fly, growing as pilots, and the joy of flying to destinations. The purpose of the podcast is not to teach, but to share knowledge and experiences. You definitely should not take any advice too seriously from an aviation podcast that uses terms like icing on the vegetables. Okay, checklists are complete. Let's get the show started.
Hello and welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast, episode 117. This is where we share our experiences and challenges of flying in midlife. Whether you're a seasoned pilot, training for a rating, or just thinking about getting started in aviation, we like to think of the podcast as your aviation companion and your weekly dose of aviation inspiration. Tonight, We're going to start a war. It's going to be the high wingers versus the low wingers. My name is Ben, and I am an IFR rated pilot with a commercial certificate. I'm based here in the metro Atlanta area, and I get to fly a Cessna 182. I like to call the Beast. Joining me tonight from the Bachelorette Super Charlie. He flies a Cherokee 180 named Lucy. It's my friend Brian. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Super excited to be here for our high wing versus low wing tennis volley of. I mean, we're really just lucky to even be in the aviation world at all. It's funny that we argue these things. It's so picky, but it's so fun. So we're gonna have fun with that this evening for sure. I wanted to make a quick side comment here. You mentioned and you always do this when you introduce, we talk about our planes and what they're named and what we fly. And so, yes, I've been fortunate enough for the last while to be flying Lucy, the red topped Cherokee 180 that's very Lucille Ball. I have some bad news to report. As life goes, things happen, things change, and sometimes we don't like it. I just wanted to send a special shout out to my friend Ryan, who was one of the former, who was a partner in Lucy, and he and his wife named Lucy. He passed away unexpectedly last week. I had just texted with him on Sunday and was telling him about how I broke the latch in the hangar door and sent him a picture of it. And his last words to me on this earth were, "You broke that real good." So it wasn't just, but a couple days later, he had some health issues that came up that, he was only 44 years old, grown kids, great guy. If there's anything to take away from who he was, it was that he was the kind of person that everybody could rely on. He would, you hear this, but he was the person that would give you the shirt off of his back. He was the person that would help. He was the person that was always there to help. And he would go above and beyond. And, so he was a firefighter. He was a family man. He was a lot of things. I knew him as a pilot and, was lucky enough to get to fly with him. And so I'm just thinking of him and his family and his friends. And I just wanted to make it known that the person who named Lucy is no longer with us. And so we are going to find a way to memorialize him on the plane. If anybody has any ideas about how best to do that, open to it. So Lucy's annual is coming up in a couple of weeks, and so that'll probably be the time that we do that. So anyway, just wanted to give a special shout out to Ryan and his family and thinking of them. And I don't want to take any more time than that, but I just had to say something because we talk about Lucy every episode, and there would not be any Lucy if it were not for Ryan. So just really wanted to send that out there. Yeah, that's it.
Our heartfelt condolences to his family. That's really tough when it goes so suddenly. Also joining us tonight, based in Portlandia, flying a Flight Design CTLS we like to call the Egg. It is our friend Ted. Good evening.
Hey, nice to be here. Yeah, I had this realization when I was flying that there's a countable number of summers that I'll have to fly. And there's something about aviation and also midlife that made me realize that. It's not icy mortality because of crashes or things like that. It's just this realization that there is a limited time. These are countable numbers. It's not like when you're 11 years old sitting in class and it feels like time stretches to infinity, probably before the class goes out, that it's that long that you can't even imagine the end of the period. And for some reason, I realized that because again, I count summers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Crazy stuff.
There's probably some
Figure
people
that
that can't even see the end of this podcast, Ted.
I don't blame them. Yes.
Yeah. Maybe because of us that they can't see the end of the podcast. but-
Yes.
So tonight, as I mentioned, we're going to do and we'd love to hear from our chat. We've got a growing group in there, and we'll definitely be listening and watching for your comments. With regards to events and announcements, we have secured space to record a live podcast at the Big Texas Send, which is May 2nd through the 4th, year 2025. We're going to record the podcast on Saturday, and we should be starting right around 4 o'clock, and it will be at the Tack Arrow Hangar. Go check out their website. They've got some really cool stuff going on there. They do a lot of tailwheel training. They have a regular flight school. And I know they do a lot more than just that, but it looks like that they do a lot of backcountry training as well in their tailwheels. So it looks like a Carbon Cub fleet that they use. So maybe if Mr. Ballard, who is in our chat, can maybe we can get something on the calendar, and I can get my tailwheel endorsement. Maybe there could be some additional fun to be had.
Tack Arrow, I believe, started at an airport up here near where Carbon Cub Crafters is located, and they opened the second location down there, and all of that. Recording the podcast, they told us, "Great, we've got a space and no chairs," and I said, "I will not stand for this," and we came up with a way to get some chairs. So, gotta love the community at the airport for that. And yeah, it's going to be great at 4 p.m. On Saturday afternoon.
4 to 5. So that was maybe the best dad joke you've ever done, Ted. I'm very impressed. You're not going to stand for it. Anything else about the Big Texas Send that we need to let everybody know about?
I don't think so, other than just let us know. We understand that people have intentions to do things, and then life happens and things change. If you have RSVP'd and then you've realized that you will lose your job if you come, or whatever it is, just let us know, because we're really already well beyond what we imagined the capacity for this to be. And so every bit that we can understand about what's actually happening can help us with the level of freak out that we we need 5 volunteers to cancel your RSVP. No, it's amazing. I'm super excited about it. I can't even believe the attendance that we're going to have. But if something comes up, please let us know. That's all. And the hotel.
Yeah.
That's key, because the hotel is booked, the hangar hotel on the field there. It is booked fully. And so if you have a reservation, do 2 things. Let us know that you're canceling the RSVP. Also cancel at the hotel. There is a waiting list for people to get a room. By the way, there's plenty of other options. It's not like that's the only place, but free that up.
And in the event planning channel in Discord, I started 2 threads for people flying commercial into Austin and into San Antonio. So if you want to share a rental car with someone out to T82, that's a place you can plan on those. And if anybody's planning on sharing an Airbnb or an extra large tent, we can create a thread for that too.
Very good. In our chat, Jason Sharp mentioned he didn't get the email. And Jason, I didn't see you on the list, but we can connect offline on that. But, I'm still kind of freaking out about it, and I'm excited about it. I do believe that Terry, my lovely bride, will be joining us. So it won't take a lot of convincing of her to spill any embarrassing story that you'd like to hear about me, my shenanigans, my stupidity. But it was. It should be a lot of fun. Brian, do you want to go over the housekeeping tonight?
Yeah, let's knock that out real quick. Let me we have a sheet with this information on it. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Oh, great. I found it. We are grateful for you all making this the best pilot community that we know of, a positive space where we share everything from training experiences, shared personal minimums, tackle ownership challenges, review flight plans, and best of all, make new aviation friends. Connect with us. Join our Patreon community from $1 a month, or do a one-time annual Patreon. I guess you get a discount or something if you do that. Isn't that right? It's like 10% or something if you do the annual. Yeah. And you can access exclusive content, including our Check Ride debriefs, our Killing Zone conversations, and much more. 10% supports Freedom Aviation Network's anti-human trafficking efforts. Watch us live on YouTube Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern. Share your stories with us, midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. We read all the messages, and you might even hear yours on the show. And for everything Midlife Pilot Podcast, community feedback, merch, and more, visit midlifepilotpodcast.com /dad hats, but we should probably do that. Anyway, midlifepilotpodcast.com.
Awesome. Ted, a lot of going on in Patreon and on the Discord server. You want to let us know about it?
Yeah. We've got some new Patreon members. I'd like to thank them. At the Landomatic level, we've got Once Twice Melody, aka Jonathan B. It's a friend of my friend Mark T. At the Hershey Bar level, we have Paul C., Mike M., and Max F. I'd like to thank those people for joining us.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, it's nice to see that. Nice to see people rolling into Discord. There's been 3 or 4 people in the last couple of days jumping into Discord. A couple comments a couple of topics that I've noticed. There's a lot of talk about how to log flights, especially for the logging your commercial cross country and what ForeFlight does and doesn't do for recognizing flights. There's definitely opinions about whether you should log everything together or split apart. And I love kind of the through line of it all is whatever your DPE wants is how you should log it. And
that's right.
That's such a great way to put it, right? We spent a couple of videos and pictures shared of Alton Bay, which is an ice runway up in the frozen north of the Midwest. And a couple of those resulted in incidents, like a belly up landing after hitting a snow berm. And so got to highlight Alyssa as a comment of the week here for saying, all of this is just further encouraging me to keep my plane off the ice and on regular runways. It's definitely the safest way to go. So
the comment would have been a little bit better if you didn't really set it up. Just if you would have just said, this comment is the comment of the week. But no, it's good that you did set it up. Yeah. It would have been funnier though, I think.
Yeah.
So thought we'd go around the table with a personal aviation update. Yesterday, I am dangerously close to losing my night currency, and I said to my lovely bride, I think Sunday night I'm going to go up and do some pattern work, because apparently after the perfect pattern episode, I probably could use some work in that. And lo and behold, I get a text from one Brian Siskin and say, hey, what you doing? And I love it when I get that text because it usually comes with nothing. What you doing?
No, it usually comes with, hey, I need you to pick me up.
Actually,
that's what Mark does. Yeah,
that's right. No, that's Mark's thing, not your thing. Yeah. One Dog Geeks. So yeah, we decided on a spot that I'm pretty sure is geographically halfway in between Atlanta and Nashville. And that would be Suwanee, Tennessee, Uniform Oscar Sierra. This will be the 3rd or 4th time I think I've flown into this airport. And the first time was with my college roommate who had never flown with me. And the winds were swirling pretty well up there. And I had a few beads of sweat dripping down my forehead coming in on approach. But yesterday was beautiful, a little chilly.
You should set the context a little bit about what that runway is and the setting.
That is probably a good point. So it's up on top of a hill. Mountain,
mountain.
hill, mountain. You know, it
Yeah,
depends on where
it's a
you're.
mountain.
Just a mountain. For the East Coast, it's a mountain. And it's Sewanee is home of University of the South, and there's a beautiful campus there. But it's right on top of the hill, and it's not really sloped. I mean, it maybe has a little bit of a grade to it. But what's cool about it is it's this little tiny town, and at the FBO they don't have. I mean, half the time there's nobody there. There's self-serve fuel, but they have bikes. All these bikes sitting in a bike rack that you can go and just grab one and take this little trail down to the downtown area. There's a couple of restaurants and a gas station. And so we all flew in together or met up there. We arrived within a minute of each other, really.
It was actually quite bizarre that, 'cause I thought we were well ahead of you. I thought you were running further behind. And it was so cool to just hear you come up on the radio announcing you were 10 miles out and we were maybe 6 miles out or whatever. And that was just, it was so synchronous. It felt like, okay, this is supposed to be happening right now. We're on the same page, you know? So, and by the way, you're skipping over a few details. One is that the runway is very narrow there. And
It is narrow.
And it's surrounded by trees in such a way that there's sort of 3 phases of landing there. You've got like whatever the winds are above the trees, at the trees, and below the trees. And it's a very and one of the funny things about that runway, I was telling so Luke from Luke's Landing was in my plane, and I was laughing because I said, why are the stripes? This is like a 50-foot, or maybe I think it's a 50-foot.
It's 50 foot. Runway. I checked it. Yeah.
The stripes are from LaGuardia. Like they're not in proportion,
right,
to the runway. So it actually adds a little bit of strangeness to the illusion of that a narrow runway can provide. But anyway, so yeah, we got in there, and then we made sure to watch your landing. You had an excellent landing, and easily stopped at the taxiway because you have a aircraft that stops and doesn't take much to land. But yeah, and then the other thing is, you get these bikes, and then let's set the tone here for a minute, Ben.
Yes, let's.
All right, so we've got, and Luke is younger. Luke. Luke is an honorary midlifer.
He is, because I learned yesterday he is half my age.
Yeah, yeah,
he is half my age.
But
go ahead.
He was equally winded as we all were.
Yes. I don't begrudge him for that. It's a very easy bike ride down. It's downhill the whole way, and so you just hop on the bike and let go of the brakes, and you can pretty much get down there with ease. The problem is you go eat these wonderful meals, and I think I ride a bike once a year, and that's in Sewanee, Tennessee, and it's for the half mile down and the half mile back. I just don't ride bikes. It's just not what I do. And climbing that hill on a bike that's chain skips gears and struggling a little bit. I was doing everything I could to keep that BLT down. That was my goal, is to not let it come back up. But it was definitely a good quad workout, as Luke mentioned he says, because after a long cross country, I really want to work on my quads, and that's exactly what we did. But it was a good time.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I was writing down the airport code for the show notes, and then you said it was University of the South. And what's the airport code again?
UOS. There you go.
Kind of brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, and people love the story there about the bikes that are there. It's not that the FBO provides these bikes. All the FBO does is goes into town at the end of the semester and just rounds up bikes that are left all over the place by all these kids that just don't care about their bikes and are leaving town for the summer or whatever.
Right.
And then they just throw a sticker on it that says, property of the airport, and they throw them on the rack. And then every time I've been there, it's a different set fully. It's not like the same bikes make it. They don't maintain. I don't know what they do. They just disintegrate.
I mean, some of them are really nice mountain bikes, 12 speeds with the shocks and everything. And then some of them are beach bikes. I mean, it's everything in between. Our friend JB Alunist, also points out, and I was actually kind of looking out for this person, but it's home to Max Trescott's frequent guest, Catherine Cavagnaro, and she has confirmed that is a challenging runway. So she does upset recovery training, spin training, and things like that. She's nationally, maybe world-renowned flight instructor. So a lot of people go there to take. You did as well, didn't you, Brian? Or were you signed up?
I was supposed to, but the weather didn't work out at that time, and then it's just she's very busy. It's hard to nail people down. Which, by the way, my favorite story that she ever said or mentioned in any of her podcasts or things that she's been on. My favorite story is when she's talking about climbing to whatever she takes a 150 an aerobat up to where you basically need oxygen, and then just sends it in to get as many spins as possible to try to beat these records that she keeps making. And so, and she was saying that she was on flight following. And so she was, 30 or something spins into this 70 spin run or whatever it was that she was doing. And Memphis Center comes on or whatever, calling her out and saying, traffic, 6 miles, 2 o'clock or whatever.
Now 3 o'clock, now 4 o'clock, now 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So,
like,
but that's
sir, can you see me? Do you see what can you, I guess on a radar, it would look like you're just hovering or something.
Yeah. You're just staying in one spot.
But I guess what would show a descent.
Yeah.
Quite a healthy descent. So anyway, they'd be like, wow, she's really evasive here. She's going straight down. But yeah, so great airport, great time. It was good to see you, Ben.
Likewise.
Had a good time flying with Luke. Luke and I flew from there to Dixon, Mike 02. And I was we were flying the RNAV 17 coming in and as a practice approach, and just trying to see how well my autopilot can do these things. And right at about the final approach fix, it just decided to start going to Colorado or whatever it was deciding to do. And so bailed on that pretty quick and just hand flew it in from there. I don't think I'd landed at night in a while with no pappies or anything. And that was, Luke was like, are you comfortable with this? We don't have to, I'm like, dude, it's fine. Look how crazy high we are, but, which is another reason to get, I love Lucy, right? The Cherokee, you can just hang it up there, man. It doesn't care. But anyway, good flight. And then flew out of there back to Nashville. It was an excellent day of flying and glad we got to meet up, man.
Yep. Me too. And then you did some more flying today.
Yeah. I got up and did a instrument lesson this morning and actually went back to that. I was, what do you kids call it? The unpublished holds. Doing some unpublished holds.
Nice.
And it's really, I don't understand. It's not hard, except for that it's really hard.
Were you under the foggles while you were doing your holes?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I had actually 3 sets of foggles on just to make sure that, no, I had 1 set of foggles on, and I don't know. It doesn't really, I kind of don't really care about the view limited aspect of it. It's more just the execution of the flying. And I'm not bad at precision flying, but there are things that start to kind of happen, quick. And I was doing all the radio calls. I was, the actual calls that were going to the field that were not in practice RNAV speak, and simultaneously doing his mock calls of, HEC vectoring me to this unpublished hold, and then all of that. So anyway, I know for much of our audience, this sounds like complete amateur hour, but we all start somewhere. And I'm just saying, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to keep up this kind of training that I'm lucky enough to be able to partake in right now. But I'm doing what I can when I can and just chipping away.
Yeah.
And it's just a different mindset. It's not like private training where if you don't do it every 2 or 3 days, you might as well just, you just feel like you're redoing everything all over again. This is a little different because I'm more settled in just overall as a pilot. And it's interesting to see his feedback too, where it's probably, I don't know. I think that for people that go straight from getting their private right into instrument, there's still things that they're, whereas he doesn't have to worry, I think, as much about a lot of things that I'm doing. And if we have to, I don't know, go mist in a hurry and climb right turn to 3,000 or whatever, it's not wondering about how coordinated I am necessarily or things like that. Plus, tailwheel instructor. So anyway, it's been really cool, and I'm really enjoying that. And then I did some flying again later today. That was just I wanted to do some flying. It was such a nice day, so I just wanted to go out and do some non-foggle flying. So it was great. Oh, nice, banjo pilot. Today was my first instrument lesson. I'm with you. Yeah, man. That's awesome. And to me, I'm sort of, I don't know, I'm kind of just excited by it because it's something different and it's a challenge. And I am not in a vigorous hurry to do it. So that makes it kind of, I'm just more at peace with, okay, yeah, I screwed that up, whatever, I'm in just a different headspace than I was getting my private, where I was beating myself up mercilessly at every turn.
Yep.
Very cool. Any helmet fires?
A little bit. There was definitely one point where I just said, can you make that call, or, things like that. What it was though was, and I suppose this is a real world thing, Ben, but when you're dealing with the pattern, and you've got, I don't know, you're in a non-towered airport and you've got various people doing various things, and you're trying to do a practice approach, and people are, I don't know, there's jets coming in and they say that they're doing a 7-mile base or something. And it's like, well, how does that relate to where we are?
Right.
You know what I mean? And are they putting that together? And then, all the right of way things and all of that, it just creates a different puzzle of VFR-ness in its IFR-ness.
It's long been a complaint of mine. Once I got my IFR, it's easy for a jet or anybody that's flying an IFR saying, I'm at the final approach fix. And to a VFR pilot, that means nothing.
Yeah.
And have always been a proponent of, when you are doing a practice or a real approach for that matter, when you're making your radio calls, I'm 6 miles out at the final approach fix. I give some more context around exactly where I'm at.
Yeah. I felt like you, Ben. I'm doing a 7-mile final.
Yeah.
I'm just but the reason why I'll punctuate that with on the practice RNAV 17 or whatever is because I just don't want people to think that I'm doing it straight in for no reason.
Yeah.
But by the way, and that was the other thing we didn't mention about Sewanee. You cracked me as soon as you got out of the plane. You're like, well, how was that pattern entry, Brian?
I put a lot. By the time I was over or near Chattanooga, I was studying that sectional, planning out the exact perfect pattern entry. And I got to say, I crushed it, because, I'm following the magenta line, which is going to put me in the center of the airport. And I decided I'm just going to go about half a mile off, parallel to that magenta, which will give me a 90-degree turn into the 45, which will set me up perfectly. And I don't know if you were tracking me on on FlightAware or not, but I did that just for you.
Well, get it into FlyStow and share it, and let's marvel at it.
I'll do that.
We can marvel at the geometry of your pattern entry.
Ted, enough about us.
Yeah,
we've been rambling on for too long. Tell us what you and the egg and your iPad have been doing.
Yeah, there is not much time between work and horrible weather to fly, but I knew that Friday was going to be tolerable and that it was going to get worse. And so I went and hopped up for a quick flight, and I actually flew 52 miles away. I was like, this is like, cross country distance, and which was great to actually go somewhere. And land and turn and came back. But I realized when on the way to the airport, it's like, I don't have my iPad. It's like, am I going to stop a flight over this? I'm like, no, because I have like 7 screens in the plane. I have my phone. I have 3 different ways that I receive ADS-B data. Like the iPad is only one of them. So
And the chip in your brain is the other.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. It's got pretty good reception, actually. Yeah. Terrible to get through, commercial going in the airport, but yeah.
Well, you got your hair cut, so that makes it a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. Better reception that way. So, yeah. And the other thing is, I put out a video that's entirely just taxiing around an airport. So it's the weirdest video.
I saw that. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love how you exacerbate the waiting by, like all you're going to be doing is watch. It becomes very I don't know how to explain it. When you put a timer up, it's like, I guess I'm going to watch this and wait with him. He's clearly set this up that we're all waiting here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I enjoyed it, actually. It was good.
Yeah. Yeah. I was working on something else, and which I'll release soon, but I thought, you know what, this is a neat little story in itself. There's going to be very few people that like it. It's not a casual video, but there's just enough weird things going on, and lots of line up and wait on the runway, and student pilots, and just the Canadian dude in the wrong place on the ground. Just it was kind of a little bit of an adventure. So.
Yeah.
It inspired me to start doing something in my airplane. So Stuart has a habit, and I do it now too. The ADF receiver has a timer on it. And so we leave it on. So as soon as you turn the power on, it turns on and starts counting. And then I use my Garmin 345, the ADS-B, the transponder. It will record your flight time. So when you get at 60 miles an hour or whatever we set it at, it records it as you being in the air. So it's flight time. So I like to now look at the difference to see how much time I really do spend on the ground. I have Garmin Pilot set up to where my taxi time is 0.1. And now I really want to kind of measure that out. I've got reliable data to do that. But when I saw your timer on there, and then it kind of clicked into my head, I need to leave that ADF on and see how that is. So,
yeah,
very cool.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to be really clear. It's like, this is not a complaint. I mean, 9 minutes is not a big deal, especially when there's lots of weird things going on like that. But it was just interesting to me.
Yep. Want to get to one of the comments real quick, and then we'll hit the top. Get into the arguments, the spat, the debate. Lionel in our chat said, my brain melted yesterday during an IFR lesson, broke off to enter the pattern, lifted foggles, and honestly, I just couldn't compute and blew pattern altitude. My brain and eyes were not happy. I want to make a quick comment on that. Lionel, the more helmet fires you put yourself into, the better you will be at them. So, and be able to deal with them. So that's, when I go for proficiency checks or go up with a CFI, I ask for the helmet fire. So, it's good training, really good training. So tonight, I want to set the stage. As midlifers, I think we'll be whatever team, high wing or low wing, really kind of depends on what aircraft we have access to. Maybe there's some of us midlifers out there that have access to both, but we've got 2 high wingers as hosts and 1 low winger as hosts. Although Ted has flown quite a number of different airplanes. Brian, you've flown both. Mm-hmm. I will tell you, I have 1.5 hours in a Piper Warrior out of the 1,150 hours that I have in my logbook. So I don't think it's going to be a big stretch to know where I'm starting out from. I will say the number one complaint of people that fly low wings who gets into a high wing is that base turn to final, not being able to see anything. And I guess I get it, but it just, you get used to it, just like everything else. I do see that, when I did get into a low wing, I was like, oh, wow, look, you can see the runway. That's pretty cool. I can not overshoot the runway just about every single time in a low wing. But that's, I get it, but it just doesn't seem to bother me that much.
It'd be hilarious to get an artist to do a painting on the underside of your left wing that is, once you dip the wing, it reveals this image where it just looks like a cub is coming right at you with the runway in the background. That's a real thing. I think it's massive. I like to see things. So, but the visibility stuff, it's everything is, you always say this, Ben, and it's totally true. Everything's trade-offs. So for wherever you get a gain in one area, you're going to lose something somewhere else. And so one of the things that I'm always thinking about, for instance, is, and one reason why I don't do any kind of teardrop entries, not to bring up pattern entries again, but I'm just saying descending near the pattern in any way in a low wing is a little nerve-wracking. I don't like that at all, because there's a lot of, it's just one giant blind spot. So I feel better coming in at pattern altitude, doing a direct midfield or whatever. So everything is trade-offs. I actually have been finding it really interesting to watch Josh Flowers go through his quest for he and Chelsea to figure out which plane they're going to get, the sling, the TSI, or the high wing, and to see it playing out with them, because they're both high wing flyers and have been for a long time and have those planes, and to see them sort of going through those machinations to figure out what they want. And I'll tell you this, Chelsea said something that really stuck with me, that I thought that's exactly it. Is she really thought that the high wing was going to be what she would want or whatever, and she thought that the low wing would, and I think Josh similarly was thinking low wing is going to block my visibility of down, and I'm a filmmaker and I want to be able to see everything and all this stuff. But the point that she made was, I actually realized that I like seeing the wing in the context of where I'm flying and what's going on, and it makes it a different experience. I that's something similar that I had sort of felt, but maybe not worded in that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Those two slings are really interesting because it's basically the same plane. It's literally the same wing put into two different bodies, and the low wing is a good 10 knots faster, because the high wing has extra height to it for the wing spars to go through above the head. So if that's your only goal, is efficiency and speed, can't argue with that. Sling is like, oh, this is great. This is why the 916 exists. More horsepower, right? It's like, well, yeah, you could also put that in the low wing. So I just think there aren't many direct comparisons like that, right?
Correct.
Same wing, same engine, same,
right.
So
does the sling high wing have a more higher useful load?
No, they're really similar.
Okay.
All the numbers are pretty similar on those.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'm
Steven
going to be flying. Go ahead.
Steven Stills has really said it, right? It's love the one you're with. And,
right.
I really feel that way, right? Like I did 120 hours in the RV-12, and I had a few hours in other things. And the first plane that I went to rent was a low wing, and that was fine. But the reason I'm in a high wing is just because I like the plane. It's not because I'm a proponent of high wing. There are things I love about a high wing, though. So
I agree. I will hopefully one day be flying for a living, and it could be a TBM, or it could be a Cessna Grand Caravan. It could be either way. It is 100%. You're going to love the one you're with. Lord Alpha Juliet in our chat mentioned, he's both. His club is Cessna products, and they're all high wing. But if you're going to get a job, more than likely you're going to be in a low wing. So, but I will say though, I find myself when the autopilot is on and I go through my instrument scan, make sure all the engine temps, everything is fine, and listening out for radio calls, I will be staring out that window and just, I don't know. I just can't not look at the ground. There's something, even when I'm flying commercially and I'm choosing my own seat, I'm not sitting by the wing. I want to look out and just enjoy the views.
Yeah. Well, it's also the wing position can vary a lot in these low wings, and wing forward, wing back, etc. I think that this may sound strange, but I have a lot of time in 172. I feel like when I'm flying a low wing, I feel like I'm flying like a real plane. Does that make any sense? It
No,
feels.
you're telling me I'm flying a fake plane?
I'm saying. Okay, how do I? Those Ben. Like how people have especially in our part of the country, people like their big pickup trucks, right? And those things that they put on the back of the truck right off the trailer hitch.
Yes, I do know what you're talking about.
That's what.
Nuts. I have no idea what you're talking about.
That is what you are in a high wing, Ben. You're just hanging from a wing, right? The center of gravity is just different in a low wing. I didn't even know we were going to go here, but this is what I'm saying.
Well,
I'm trying to charge this up a little bit because I want people to get more charged in the chat.
Yeah,
here.
so I drive a F-150. Now, I don't have those things hanging off my I have a trailer hitch. But
do you have a Calvin
so if
sticker?
you want to call the 182 the pickup truck of the sky, I'm all right with that.
Do you have the Calvin sticker?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying
yeah.
I'm just saying that the feeling of hanging from a wing is similar to what would be hanging from your It feels like that versus being really locked into the dead centerness of the plane. It's just a totally different feel, and to me that equates to this feeling like that I feel when I'm in a high wing, I feel like I'm hanging while flying from a high wing. Whereas when I'm in a low wing, I feel like I'm just slicing through the air. Clean.
Let me hit Wendell Geeks comment. He says, I think what Brian is trying to say is that there's a sportiness to a low wing compared to a high wing. I think going with your analogy,
sportiness meaning that
you can kind of think of a park bench where you're sitting on it versus a swing set where you're sitting under it. And there is a little bit of that feeling.
Flying that low wing, it's like your engine fails, drop a brick out, and that's where you land. Where, when you're in a high wing, you've got places to go.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about option fatigue.
Right.
But to be clear,
I'd rather have them than not.
That is a Piper thing, not a low wing thing.
That's right.
The wing fair. Efficiency is different.
That's a fair comment, and I take that back. Let me ask you this question, because I have only landed a Piper Warrior maybe 3 times, and that was in 2019.
And that was one landing.
Okay. I'm gonna just let that one slide. It was actually.
I thought you were gonna say it. I don't know.
No, but here's the thing: you've got. Do you think there is any more or less skill, or the same amount of skill, to land a low wing versus a high wing?
Okay, that's interesting. If you're placing that in a skill, and obviously I'm really speaking from a Piper perspective. So,
but you've also flown 172s.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, as far as I don't have a lot of various low wing experience, right? So I'm really coming from more of we can refine this maybe to being Cessna versus Piper in some ways, but I think it takes more. I think it takes more skill to land a high wing probably than it does to land a low wing when it comes to Cessna versus Piper.
I would just say a really smooth land, like a butter, greaser, because you have those spring leaf struts and they're a lot more sensitive to it. So I'd agree with that. But yeah, AJ brings up a couple of good points. The glide ratio of a PA-46 at Malibu is like 20-1. And my 182 is 8-1. Actually, with the Stoll kit, I think maybe you can get a little bit more out of that. But
Ben, I never want you to say that again. AJ brings up some good points.
yeah, I
never
mean,
needs to
you
be
got to
mentioned on
give.
the show.
He's allowed 2 to 3 good points a year, and he's just used 2 of them. So we'll
On
just
the
let that slide.
PA46, he's getting turbine time right now, which is pretty cool.
Amazing.
Mr.
So-
Alunis has a great point here, which is one of the things I love. I'm going to give you 2 things. This is the first. He says high wing flyers don't have to worry about switching tanks every 20 minutes. That is very true. If you look at the new slings or the new Cirruses, they've both gone to an automatic switching, so that because of the problem of low wings needing to switch the tanks, you can talk about advantages and disadvantages, but it's one more place that I can be dumb, and I'm dumb. So I prefer the high wing where I have a both, and that is much less of a problem for me.
You know, gravity has never failed me. Gravity's always going to pull that fuel down into the gas tanks.
You and I both have fuel injected planes, so they're still very dependent on
But you don't have to have the fuel pump on at all times either, though.
Well, I do, because I'm
The engine
highly
engine driven, but yeah, mine we're just using it to prime.
Yeah. Now, I've got to say the other thing, and this is actually the thing that keeps me in high wings more than anything else, which is the ease of getting into it for people with limited mobility.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to be young and spry to be able to climb into a low wing, or into a high wing, I mean.
If you have an irrational dislike for people that are not able-bodied or elderly, then the low wing is for you.
Make it a positive. Yes.
Like, it's a way to just weed out a lot of people that might want to ride.
Look, if you're tired of doing your yoga classes every morning, just buy a low wing and just get in out of it. That will count for your yoga.
They'll hate it. They'll never come with fly with you again.
Hey, we've got to hit Jason Sharp's comment here. He says, "We low wingers don't worry about switching tanks. We only worry when we forget to switch them." Valid point.
Yes.
And
It's
then the
really
flight
not a
ratio
big.
is important. Yeah.
It was kind of a thing for me when I first switched over, but I don't even think about it now. It's really easy to manage, and I have the 530 just reminds me, and whatever, it's fine.
Yeah. And guess what? Not seeing the runway on base doesn't really bother me anymore either. So
yeah, and then also, even if you had no indication, or every reminder that you've set up is failing you, when you're going down to keep changing the rudder trim while you're in cruise, you start to go, oh wait, why am I having to? Oh right, okay, so.
Very good.
My Dynon does say switch fuel tanks, and or switch fuel. I can't remember exactly the wording of it, and I use that as a reminder to monitor my fuel, and so I'm still in that habit of every 20 or 30 minutes using that reminder as the prompt for it.
Yeah,
and I have to be honest. In mine, I do have to burn it off the right, because of the way the unused fuel returns into that tank. And if you let it go for more than an hour, you can get a small imbalance. So I do have a timer on my iPad that I do remind myself to switch tanks. So none of us are really immune to that.
Yeah.
I really like the high wing obviously for tail wheel and for low flying,
Yes.
When it's all about what am I seeing right there. And if you're doing that kind of backcountry stuff, right? Like, you want to do inspection passes or whatever. So you probably should be able to see as best as you can straight down. But look, I am just grateful to have any kind of an airplane to fly, but I really truly love the low wing. I was a little reticent about getting into a Hershey Bar airplane. I love it. It is fantastic. I just think it's the coolest thing. And I love how easy it is for me to get around, even just the airport and hangars and people pulling their planes out, and I can scoot around because I don't have 36 feet or whatever it is. I've only got 30. And so it just feels a little bit more nimble, a little quick, I don't know. It's just it's a great thing. So But
Well, let's
it
end
doesn't
it
really
on
matter. All I want is a plane though that has the interior of Ben's plane. That's all I,
this. Let's end it this way. I
Yeah.
will admit this. Taxiing the 182 on the ground is not a lot of different than taxiing my truck. They're very similar.
Yeah.
So, we'll go ahead and leave it there. We'll let the chat continue to have their way with it. What I would like to do is ask y'all or thank all of our Patreon supporters. Love to thank everybody in the chat. A couple of new faces in there, and a lot of the same old group. So we're glad you're with us. You can catch us live on YouTube Monday nights at 8 p.m. And is there anything else that we need to bring up, gentlemen, for the good of the order?
Oh,
Tonight's bit of wisdom. The difference between fiction and reality, fiction has to make sense. Signing off, episode 117 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
well, this is
Whoa.
the first. Yeah, we're still here.
Noonan. All right. So everybody stick around, hang out with us, get your own whiskey or pear juice or whatever you're into. And are you guys going to stick? We're going to do some bio breaks and some
Yes.
things and come back. All
And
right.
refills.
So should we do that in shifts so that somebody's here? I think maybe we should.
Let's have at least one, maybe two people here. I'll start staying here for a minute.
All
All
right.
right, I'll run and get it.
So,
See you later.
Occasionally you get a text during the show. Bye, Brian.
Okay.
Occasionally you get a text during the show and it's from someone that you realize you want to reply to because it's probably about the podcast. That was Mom. She said, "There's a podcast tonight, isn't there? What's tonight's topic?" And that's after the podcast started. So I sent that to her. And then she said, "I'm in the bedroom folding clothes and stacking them on the bed, listening to the current podcast. It's a good life." So if you're my mom, you get the personal service of what's going to happen on the live stream. So that's awesome. Yeah. AJ, got you still? Yeah. It's getting time in that PA46. It's like November 7777 something, maybe Foxtrot. It's got the worst call sign. So yeah. What was it they said to you about that? It's the sound of a starter. Is it of a piston starter? The 7777. I just thought that was great. And we definitely skipped the comments of biplane, mostly for time. I was going to bring up the Super Petrol LS, which they don't call it biplane, but it is. Loved the comments earlier. Well, let's hit some of these that were great. There you go. It's a radial not starting, the 77. Yeah. Anyway, there's some great comments here that we did skip. High wing can be a low wing if you fly bad enough or good enough. Grizzly, you can legally make your low wing a high wing, I believe. I don't know if you have to do anything with the oil system for that. What else? Yeah, and Peter, I didn't mention that. I thought about that. I love hiding from the rain under the wing. I love setting up my tent under the wing, and I can hide from the sun under it. which you can do with a low wing. It's just a lot harder. And then, yeah, of course, the stagger wing comments. That was the other one that kind of skipped over, because the stagger wing is it's hard to beat that. And as midlifers, we've got a history of seeing the stagger wings in person. So, yeah, I'm currently on team low wing. Mark and I have talked about that quite a bit, about the mobility advantages of the high wing for getting into. So, yeah, I was just going through the comments that I pinned, Ben.
Okay.
And,
I did want to say, is Jason still in the chat? I did get his email, and I'll get you on the list, but we do need the. I just didn't see you in the RSVP list. Now it may be in there because I just did a really quick scan, but I do have your email, and I will I'll get you on the. I'll send you the previously sent email, and then you'll be included on all future ones. And now it would probably be my luck that you're probably not in there anymore, and I just said all that for nothing. So now I'm checking all the pinned comments. Pinned by Ted. $180-degree roll is normal for us, huh? Let's see. If Ed says, if you are midlife pilots, does that make me a late life pilot? I am a very new private pilot with only high wing time. Ed, I would say there's no such thing as a late life pilot. As Brian, who just joined back, says all the time, we are all in the middle of something.
Hey, did I tell you I saw Evan, our friend Evan, today at the airport?
No, I haven't heard from him in a while.
I haven't heard from him in a while either. I ran into him at the airport today. I had just gotten done with my instrument flying, and he was coming up to do, I guess, the CFI spin training in a, what is it? Not a Satabria, but something like that. Anyway, so he was getting prepared for that, and it's so funny because we talked for a good while, and then it's like, all right, man, well, see you later. And by the way, anything I mentioned to him, we were talking about, he kept saying, oh yeah, you talked about that on the podcast. I was like, oh, I guess that's what we do when you speak to the aviation friends for an hour every week. You end up, those are the things that are on your mind. But when I got done, though, came back. This is later on. I ran into him again. So it was after his training, and he probably won't. I guess this will not end up in the recorded episode, but I was like, how was it? He's like, well, I'm feeling a little sick. I was like, did you get sick in the air? He's like, nope, but now I'm feeling a little sick. But he said he did fine and enjoyed it and all that stuff. It was a perfect day for it. So I guess
we should have Sam on and get an update on his life.
I know. Well, I'm actually going to be flying with Sam Wednesday morning.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I've got to learn how to fly really well before then.
Now you're starting to feel pressure. Sam's involved now, and now you're starting to feel a little bit of pressure.
Feel a little bit of pressure. Yeah. He's doing really well. He's our friend who is the only reason he's not a captain is because of his age.
He's probably got to be seniority level like 1 or 2 as a first officer.
Yeah, I think he's
worth it too.
Yeah. So I'm excited to catch up with Sam. We got to see Evan, so we got to see the whole crew. So pretty great.
Please tell Sam and Evan that I asked about them. I enjoyed hanging out with those guys.
Yes, yeah. So
and hey,
very
Ed,
cool.
You can call yourself midlife however long you want. We do not discriminate on that. In fact, here is our youngest midlife pilot podcast DJ. When she did her glider, she got a special shirt. So people have got to be confused when she's wearing something that says midlife on it. So
if people don't know the context for that.
Oh, we're on the live stream.
DJ's 15 years old.
Yeah.
She does not have her driver's license yet.
Yeah.
So.
And the whole debrief is in our Patreon. Make sure you check it out.
Yep. All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's
bring up the document.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
And to the chat, thank y'all for hanging out with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
And from the chat, sorry. Yeah.
MPP's Benjamin Button. That's pretty funny.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Let's fire this off.
Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast. What is it like to become a pilot in midlife? The challenges are unique, but so are the rewards. Hosts Ben, Brian, and Ted talk learning to fly, growing as pilots, and the joy of flying to destinations. The purpose of the podcast is not to teach, but to share knowledge and experiences. You definitely should not take any advice too seriously from an aviation podcast that uses terms like icing on the vegetables. Okay, checklists are complete. Let's get the show started.
Hello and welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast, episode 118. This is a podcast where we share the experiences and challenges of flying in midlife. Whether you're a seasoned pilot, training for a rating, or just thinking about getting started in aviation, we like to think of the podcast as your aviation companion and your weekly dose of aviation inspiration. My name is Ben. I'm a pilot with an IFR rating and a commercial certificate. I'm based in the metro Atlanta area, and I love to fly a Cessna 182 I like to call the Beast. Joining me tonight, as always, it is my friend. He lives in the home of the bachelorette capital of the world. We like to call it the Bachelorette Super Charlie. He flies a Cherokee 180. He likes to call Lucy. I like to call her Lucy as well. Brian, good evening, sir.
Good evening. It's been a minute, so very excited.
Awesome. Also joining us tonight from the land out west, Portlandia, one of my favorite towns in the country. He flies a Flight Design CTLS. We like to call it the Egg. It's our friend Ted, our sport pilot extraordinaire. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing well. Nice to be here with you.
Awesome. Long time no speak. It's been approximately 8.5 minutes since we were last together.
It's been a week.
A week and 8 minutes since we've been last together. Nope, recording a little doubleheader tonight because I once again screw up all the scheduling conflicts, and it's my world, and everybody else just lives in it, right?
That's
well,
it.
You got to remember that we don't have real jobs. You actually have a real job, so
I do have a real job.
We have
You're
to.
right.
Yeah,
it is true. We have a very nice group in the chat, and they have stuck around with us, and we're ready to get into the next topic. Just a real quick update. If you missed the last episode, we will be recording a podcast at the Big Texas Send on Saturday at 4 in the afternoon. That is Central Time, 4 p.m. Central. And should last probably about an hour, and it will be held at the TAC Aero Hangar. So if you're in the area, we hope that you'll come by and join us. Or if you're not able to join us locally, at least maybe, hopefully we'll be streaming this live on YouTube, and you can watch us all make us fools of ourselves in front of 50 or so people, or maybe even more. Who knows? Brian, it's been a while. Why don't you tell us about how people can engage with the Midlife Pilot Podcast?
Yeah, and I'd love to tell you exactly all the flying I've done in the last 5 minutes, but I haven't done any. I actually, I'm really good now about getting my logs right into FlyStow and immediately having those, because when you have a bulk of them, unless you're a TED or somebody and you don't have, like, I don't know, if you don't know scripting or some kind of crazy, I don't know, or have like an army of Amazon Web Services available to you or whatever these crazy people do, you're doing it one at a time like me. It's nice to just sort of keep up with it now. We are not sponsored by FlyStow, and it's obviously a free tool that everybody should use. But man, that's and I don't know about you guys, but when the weather's bad, that's a place where I go to kind of get my fix a little bit of reliving some flights and remembering moments and learning things and analyzing things more deeply than maybe I had even the first time that I put those in there. So, and I've noticed people more and more in the Discord or our community are using it and then pulling insights from it. So what a cool thing. They must be doing an amazing job with data harvesting such that they don't have to charge anything for it, because it's such a robust tool for free that it's outrageous. And anything that's that good and free is probably, I don't know. They know where you live. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
No, but
well, you can always go to flystow.net/MPP. No, not really.
you can get 100% off if you just go to flystow.net, and then you don't even have to tell them anyway. Yeah. So, let's get this housekeeping, what we call it, the belly wash, out of the way here.
Yes.
Everybody, hey, we are grateful for you all, especially people in the chat here tonight. We're grateful for you all making this the best pilot community that we know of, a positive space where we share everything from training experiences, shared personal minimums, tackle ownership challenges, review flight plans, and best of all, make new aviation friends or talk smack about avionics. Connect with us. Join our Patreon community from $1 a month, or do a one-time annual Patreon. You can start helping us out for 25 cents per episode, which hopefully that's worth it. You can access exclusive content, including check ride debriefs, Killing Zone conversations, and more on Discord. By the way, special shout out always to One Dull Geek for running a lot of these debriefs. He asks the best questions and makes that content really more valuable. So it's nice to sort of have proxy extensions of hosts of the show to extend outward and bring more in. So very cool stuff in the Patreon. There's a whole collection of content there that you can go and playlist and check it all out. There's a lot there. Watch us live on YouTube, Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern. Share your stories, midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. We read every message. You might hear yours on the show. And for everything Midlife Pilot Podcast, community feedback, merch, and more, visit midlifepilotpodcast.com. Boom.
Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Do we have time to go through the 30 names that joined us on Patreon in the last 12 minutes?
Exactly. No, but I did pick out a couple of things for the community spotlight
Cool.
on Discord to share. In fact, some of these conversations happened within the last 24 to 36 hours from before we recorded this, which was troubleshooting the Vernotherm oil cooler circuit. And gee, why isn't my oil temp coming up above like 140 in the winter?
Can I make a quick comment about that?
Yeah.
When I first heard the term Vernotherm, I felt like that was a term that a mechanic was using because I was an idiot and that no such thing really existed. He just thought he would make up a word, and I just thought I really didn't think that was a thing. I think he was just trying to fool me about some stuff.
What was
like Vernotherm goes to camp?
Yes. I was trying to think of Vern, like what that was from. Yeah. Second one was Trio autopilot troubleshooting. It seems like there's a common thread of people that have Trios that have quirks to them.
I'm one of them.
Yeah. There, in the last week.
Hey, look, I like to have avionics to keep you on your toes.
Yeah. Look, you're not going to get spoiled by automation when you have a Trio, right?
Look, I don't want to speak badly about Trio. I don't want to speak badly about it, but it it is a little when you're not dealing with a company that has a majority of the market share, it's a little harder to, it's like anything else, like a foreign car or I don't know, something where it's harder to get service and harder to troubleshoot.
Well, probably wasn't, a $12,000 priced item either. Like,
That's true. And if anybody
top
out
of the
there
market.
is a Trio representative or certified something or other, please reach out. midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks.
Yeah. Third topic that I saw, which is all related to this stuff, which is talking about experimental aircraft and building and build assist options. We had a kind of a long discussion about, would you like to build? Would you like to build assist? What makers offer build assist, that type of thing. And those are great conversations to have in the Discord. There's people that actually know, and there's people like me that can Google really well and pretend I know. So yeah.
It's interesting too to see everybody's reflections on what they would be interested in or have done, because everybody's life is different and
Yes.
everybody's interest levels are different.
Yeah.
And so for some, meeting the 51% is perfect. For others, they want, and then it's always the, how much can I just build in my basement before, just all of those questions. Yeah, it was super interesting conversation. If you haven't seen that, please go and check it out. Which, by the way, side note, it reminds me, have you ever seen the movie Ghost Dog? It's a Jim Jarmusch film.
I've not.
Okay, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. If anybody in the chat's seen Ghost Dog, please make me sound less insane. But there's a unforgettable scene, and there you can go find this scene actually on YouTube, isolated unto itself. But the main character, who's played by Forrest Whitaker, he's this kind of he's an assassin basically, and he's really good friends with this guy who sells ice cream out of an ice cream truck in his Brooklyn neighborhood or whatever. And but he only speaks French, so they have no understanding of what each other is saying, but they're really good friends and they converse all the time. And sometimes they fully understand each other, and sometimes they're totally talking about totally different things. Anyway, the point is, they go to the top of this rooftop of this building, and they're looking across to the next building, and they see a man building this huge boat on top of a building in Brooklyn. And it's up on the whole thing. And, he's clearly been working on this thing for years. And they're laughing. They're like, well, this guy's, how's he ever going to get that thing down from there? And then they just kind of say hello to him and all that. That's what I think of every time I think of people building a plane in their basement. Like, what if you just miscalculate, right? Like, then you got.
Well, I've got to say, I'm with Wendell Geek here. Two things I've never heard of: Ghost Dog and Jim Jarmusch.
Jim Jarmusch. Yeah, but yes, Jim Jarmusch, fantastic director. Check him out.
It does remind me. There's a guy in the islands. I don't know if it's the San Juan Islands in Washington or if it's up into Canada by Vancouver Island. But the guy's got a true sailboat, and it's up in the middle of the island in the forest. And he's building this thing. He's been building it forever. And there are questions about what you do with this sailboat, how you get it to the water, and that type of thing. But it's similar questions are raised. Yes.
What can I just add one more thing to this completely pointless conversation?
Yeah.
That we call a podcast. Anyone who watches my videos knows that I'm a huge fan of Charles Kuralt and his On the Road series.
Yes.
And there's an episode of Charles Kuralt's On the Road that you can find on YouTube, where he goes out to this rural farmer is building this ship. I mean, it is a bona fide ship, and he's using, tractor parts and stuff from cars. And it's just this crazy thing that he'd been working on. He's probably, when they were filming this interview with him, he's probably in his 70s, and his wife is all for it. Fine. And he's talking about the promise of, I'm going to sail this thing to go to, I don't know where I forget what he was saying, like Cuba or I don't know, somewhere, and all this. And when you're watching it, you're just thinking, God, this is similar to the Jim Jarmusch thing, where it's kind of like, God, this is sort of a heartfelt thing, like somebody building something of such magnitude on this perpetual basis for so long, this dream manifest that's probably not going to go anywhere. And you're looking at this guy, it's like he's pretty old. This boat looks insane. Like, it's just, how does anybody think that this thing's going to go anywhere? But as the story progresses, he gets it out. He gets it on the water. It goes. He did it,
Yeah.
So that's, I think, probably, I would imagine for anybody that builds an aircraft, there's a little bit of that feeling. Like, I forget what one of my hangar neighbors, I forget what kind of plane it is, but he built it and it's a 1-seater. And I'll never forget talking to him. And I was like, oh, wait, so how do you, I guess you can't really get checked out on this, he's like, no. I was like, so tell me about what it was like when you took your first flight. And he says, well, I took it out to the runway and I did a couple of high-speed taxis and, saw how that was going and everything. And then I was just doing another high-speed taxi. And then, I don't know, I was flying, it was like at some point you just choose to just rotate.
Go back.
Yeah.
Let's take a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, we've got to say thanks to Jason Sharp, because he either recognizes the movie Ghost Dog or he's at least humoring you, Brian. And
All right.
way, thank you.
All right.
And yeah, we've got some listener feedback. Do you want to catch that, Brian?
Listener feedback. So this is from Oliver P. out of Montreal. Thankfully, it was sent to us in English. All right, here we go. Having been a passionate. Okay, hold on.
That was copy and pasted, by the way.
Well, I think there's some grammatical. Okay, all right. So that wasn't me. Okay, somebody's in the document just cleaning up.
Edited this. Yes.
Live editing.
This is. We just would like to taxi back to the hangar, please. All right. Having been passionate about flying since a young boy, including a stint in the RAF cadets in my late teens. That's Royal Air Force, right?
Yes.
Royal Air Force cadets in my late teens, through paragliding in the Alps as a young pre-midlife adult. Wow. Paragliding in the Alps. I mean, if you're doing that at any part of your life, your first solo cannot be that daunting, can it?
Yeah.
I finally jumped into real flying as a midlifer and begun my PPL training last spring up here in Montreal, Canada. It has been a slow but highly rewarding burn, supported in a monumental way by your podcast that keeps me company, resilient and confident along the journey, whether I'm driving to the airport or driving nails into my latest home repair job. My first solo came as quite a surprise in September when the chief instructor took me up for a pre-solo check ride, and upon taxiing back to the apron, called up ATC and asked, would now be a good time for a first student solo? I looked at him and thought, what about asking the first student solo himself if this is a good time? ATC affirmed, and before I had a chance to talk anyone out of it, he had jumped out of the plane, and there I was, no choice but to fly. Somehow, even though you had no idea who I was, I thought to myself at that moment that the Midlife Pilot podcast will be proud of me for what I am about to do. In some subtle but very important ways, you had prepared me for this. As we speak, I am in the midst of cross-country training, after which I'm told it's all check ride prep. Warm regards, Oliver P. in Montreal. Thank you for that, Oliver. That's massive. And I don't know if I'm terrified that the thought of our podcast entered your brain right before soloing, or if I feel humbled, or I some mix of both of those things. But I can say that for me, anything that anybody has said to you along the way that is helpful about what that moment's going to be like for you and encouraging, and you're going to be fine, and you'll get through it, and it's going to be a little overwhelming, and the plane's going to be lighter, and all the things. That stuff does come to your mind when it's happening, and you do sort of run through the Rolodex of, where's my your encouragement Rolodex, So
life flashes before your eyes. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So we're happy to have been part of your encouragement Rolodex, which is a new trademark term I just came up with. But that's awesome. Thank you, Oliver.
That is awesome. It is nice. And if the Midlife Pilot podcast thoughts keep entering your brain, let us know. We can probably find a good therapist for you.
Yeah.
We can maybe try to help you fix that. But
Yeah.
no,
And by the
that's
way,
really cool. I love those feedbacks.
the other part of it I really liked, by the way, is I mean, I know he's sort of making a fun of it, joke about it, but it really is so telling, the part where he says, I looked at him and thought, what about asking the first student solo himself
No,
if this is a good time?
he didn't want to give him a choice. I love that.
Well, but I think it's even if you're on board and what it's so you want to talk about. We've talked about imposter syndrome, and if there's ever a moment where stuff gets real because you want to solo and you're working hard to solo and you've clearly done a few flights before that one that really proved that you were ready and all of those things, but there's still just that moment when it's I don't know, I guess this is all of I have now reached the level of training for which I will have before I embark on my solo. It is now exactly this point in time. And then you have to do a quick audit and go, okay, am I ready?
Yeah. Well, just remember, if Ted can do it, you'll be fine. So
that's right.
That's what
you
needs
can
to be
think
in
of the
your
Midlife
mind.
Pilot podcast in that way. And
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So tonight we're going to be talking about so we've already talked about boats. We've talked about planes. So now we're going to talk about jumping aboard the pain train. The pain train that is aircraft ownership. The trials, the tribulations. The three of us are in some form or fashion financially invested in an aircraft. And so we've all had our different ups and downs. And guys, I'll leave it up to you guys how you want to frame the discussion. What highlight certain aspects that you were not expecting, or what do you think?
Well, I think first, we've gone over renting versus owning and these, the different, I can leave my headset in the plane and, all of that, which is all totally valid. But I think that it's like any relationship, when it is a lot to get into owning an aircraft. And we're not going to get into that this evening. And we've talked about pre-buys and we've talked about all the, right plane, right mission, and, all of that stuff. But it's kind of like getting married or something. It's you feel very convinced about what you're doing and you feel very principled about what you're doing and you want to do what you're doing by committing to this aircraft. But like anything that you love, it is inevitably work on some level. And there are different phases and honeymoon periods and, whatever, all wrapped up in that. And I think that what I would like to make sure that we touch on is more about the mindset of ownership, how that changes how you go about what you do, not necessarily in flying, but also just in life, how you balance that out. And then also I'd like to touch on just what it ultimately means to commit to the responsibility that is ownership. And I know that Ted, you have basically figured out I'm just going to keep 3D printing things until the government says I can no longer do it.
It's the plane of Theseus. Yes.
Yeah. That may be the show title right there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like having my little 3D printed things on the plane in the areas where it doesn't matter. And my thing with that is I am determined not to use a single suction cup on the plane. And I don't have any. Everything is solidly mounted. And by solidly mounted, I mostly mean, 3M tape, but, still. It's that. And, that gets back to the things you can do when you own a plane. And you can kind of figure those out.
Let's take a quick step back. The reason we decide to get aboard the pain train is really the freedom that it affords us. All of us could join a flying club. All of us could, rent from different places, but you give up some freedom in doing that. And then
freedom to go broke.
well, freedom to get into the plane and go pretty much when you want to.
That's right.
Freedom to take the plane wherever you want to and not have to worry about having it back at a certain time. Freedom of not having to worry about having the plane come back in the condition that you would want it to be in. I know the flying clubs, they probably have strict rules and things to try to mitigate that. But as we mentioned in the previous podcast, everything in aviation is a trade-off. And so having those freedoms means that right now, Stuart and I are in the throes of trying to work out having the annual done and a minor panel upgrade, trying to coordinate that in a manner which would keep the plane offline for as short a period as possible. And unfortunately, it's not going to work. And we're going to have to take it down twice during the course of the year. But that's what we have to deal with when we're in the category of plane owners.
Isn't it funny when you're renting an aircraft, you look at the avionics or something about the plane, you're like, why don't they update this, or why don't they fix that, or whatever? And then you get your own plane and you're like, yeah, it's just that way. That's just how it is.
Well, when you have 60 members to chip in to replace that piece of equipment versus 1 or 2 people or 3 people to replace that, it does make the conversation a little bit different. So, but it is a burden of love. I think we would all agree with that. Especially if you were to be on our Discord server and you see all of the conversations that go on about every aspect, whether it's an oil change, whether it's an avionics question. It feels like there's a fair amount of passion about just the venture of owning an airplane, much aside from flying it. Would you agree?
Yeah, and you have to learn so much more about the plane, and you experience you're just looking at everything differently when it's yours, and in more detail. I think that for me, and this maybe doesn't. Look, I don't want to. I very well might be renting and not owning anymore at any point, right? Like I'm a visitor in this socioeconomic space, but I can say that for me, I feel I feel a part of aviation in a different way. It resonates a little bit more deeply in a way for me to have, it's a partnership. I don't fully own the plane, but even that, there's just a feeling that you get that because of the level of commitment that you've put yourself into with it, that there is a reward or an energy that kind of comes back from that when things are going well, especially. But when those things are not going well, and boy, those things can stack up. It's like the universe knows, and so we're always very careful about talking about how well our plane is doing, or anything like that. I recently told the mechanic over here at John Toon, I said, why are you guys putting, I don't know what it is, push pins or staples or whatever, but every time I'm here, I get a flat tire for some reason, and it's not the kind of flat tire that you get immediately. It's like I walk out the next morning and now it's flat. I didn't have a bad landing. What was going on here? So, you just run into those things. I mean, and I can't tell you how many times if I were a member of say a flying club or was renting, there are times where you go out to the plane that you expect to fly and there's something that's not right, a flat tire or whatever it may be. And there's the end of your options. It's you're done. Whereas if you're a renting a club, we're not trying to parallel renting versus owning, but I'm just saying you end up committing to a certain level of darkness as much as anything else. And it is something that it is bittersweet, man. It is bittersweet. But boy, when it's like having a car that's just, when it's running great and you take it out on a Sunday drive. There's nothing better in the world than that experience. And I think that ultimately, with respect to aviation, knowing as much as you can about the aircraft that you are flying and knowing intimate details of it. I mean, I would definitely, I have not had to crawl into the tail of any other planes that I've flown, but I have laid moving blankets down and avoided being chopped into 40 pieces by sharp aluminum edges, avoiding rigging and crawling back while it's 100 degrees in the hangar to get back to, install something or do something and help the mechanic do something, whatever. And it's just, as much as that stuff hurts, I have so much more of a confidence in the plane because I've seen every bit of it and I just understand it.
Yep.
So yeah.
I'm going to grab a couple of comments from Mr. Geek here. One is Open Source GA YouTube channel has a great turn of phrase for renters: squawk and walk. And that feeling of, it's broken, I'm disappointed they don't get to fly today, and you walk away is something that you don't have as an owner, and that's a huge advantage. You're not stressed about it like they are. So I really appreciate that. And speaking of squawking, Wendell Geek again says, the hardest part for me as an owner is those close call decisions on what to do about a squawk. There are some that are obvious in both directions, but those tweeners are hard. Completely agree.
Such a good point.
That's one of the things I was thinking of is you have a list of things that aren't perfect that bother you, and you're worried and you don't know what to do about. And those are the things that just kind of accumulate. And yeah,
it's interesting for me because I have those in my plane, but when I have a partner who really doesn't care about those things and is not willing to help me resolve them, I learned to let them go. I wanted to hit Pete at Niner Systems. I really like this comment. Last minute flights, single biggest reason for me. The Venn diagram of work schedules plus family schedules plus weather plus a plane availability was often resulting in null. Eliminating one of them helps.
Yep.
And that's, I think, massive. That's why if for whatever reason the beast has to be put down or gets sold or whatever, I'm going to go out and buy a Cessna 150 or something that I can get down on the ground with. I think there is something to be said to be able to walk up to your plane when you want and you're qualified and the weather suffices and send it.
I want to go back to what Wendell Geek was saying a little bit here. I really think that's the nuances of now the severity and the accountability around the squawks that you have. What is a close call? Like, what is a decision? It's really, it's not solely up to you, and you can obviously rely, and you should rely on a mechanic. And that's what I want to kind of fold this into, which is to say that it is, it doesn't matter what plane it is. You've got a handful of things that have just been kind of nagging you, and they're hard things to kind of nip in the bud, or it's a weird part. And then if I do that, but it'd be better if I would do that when I'm already opening up this other thing, and when to defer, how to defer, all of that. That is when you should definitely rely on a mechanic. And I think that in the same way that any relationship is, in the same way that I think a relationship is helped by your community or your friends or your family or the construct in which your relationship sits, is the same thing with an airplane. It's you've got to have a mechanic that you trust. And I'll go ahead and say this now. I'm very much looking forward to this, but I believe that I have convinced our mechanic to come on this very podcast. And these are the things that I want to sort of have him speak to. And and then I have other things I would prefer he not mention at all. So, so we'll see how that
That
goes.
podcast will be about 25 minutes long.
The edited version will be very fragmented, and no, what I really like about my mechanic is that he doesn't have to help us. He chooses to help us and understands that we need help. He also he's plainly said, I will never work on another Piper aircraft besides yours. You know, he's yeah. So anyway, it's to have somebody that you feel like you can text at any time, call at any time, and just be dumb with and comfortably dumb.
I remember that album. Yes.
Is that a Weird Al thing? Maybe. I don't know. So now I can hear it. So but that's what I really like about our mechanic is that I'm comfortable enough with him to say, is this, you know, Verna Thurm goes to prison, or, you know, what, whatever it is. And he will give a great, healthy response back to that. But further, when it goes to the things where it's what can be deferred, and we're about to go into annual and figure out what are all the things, and he just has years and years and years and decades and decades and decades of experience that he can call upon. We've all been doing this for just a flash in the pan compared to what he's been, you know, doing for a long time. And it's so comforting to just trust somebody and say, I believe what he's saying. He's not interested. He's clearly not, we're not a cash cow.
So a couple of things I'd like to add to that. I have the same relationship with our mechanic. Actually, I have two sets of mechanics. One that does our annuals, and we'll take it over for an oil change every now and then. But then we have a local mechanic on field that does most of the minor repairs. And they actually used to be together. They're still friendly. There's a lot of it's amicable. So, but they know us. We know them. It's almost like you refer to your relationship with the airplane as a marriage. It's almost a similar relationship with your mechanics, that you've built this relationship of trust to rely on what they're telling you. The other thing that I wanted to mention that also goes along with this is that there's some of us in the chat, and myself included, I have a partner that is also equally invested in that. We bounce things off of each other, and we're very good together. There's some things that I've called him out on. There's a lot of things he's called me out on, and that I don't think this is a good idea. That's what I mean when I say call me out on. We can do that, but how about, and having that balance has been fantastic. If you don't have a partner in your airplane, our Discord server is another excellent place of people just saying, this is what we did. They're not saying, I think you should do this, but this is how we dealt with that situation. And at least just drawing the experience from other people is, to me, invaluable.
Judgment-free zone. That's the best thing about the midlife pilot community.
Yep.
It's really open.
I think a couple of things. Let me hit Prescott Flyer. Sorry, Prescott. There, if I can say it like an Arizonan, who said, to quote Mike Bush, always, learn to be an owner in command. And it's such a great phrase, and it's a good way to put it. I don't know if your CFIs, when you're in basic training, said it to you, but there was like, fly the plane, don't let it fly you, and same sort of thing applies.
Makes sense too, because it's like, oh, I see.
Yeah. The importance of that relationship with a mechanic is not something that you have when you're renting, or that you think you have when you're getting into plane ownership. And I didn't find the mechanic that I used until I was a year into the ownership, and the person that was supposed to do the annual kind of medicaled out, and I at the last minute had to scramble and find someone, and that's the shop that I've gone to ever since. And they know me, and they know me by name. They know the plane, and so when I have a question or I need a quick little sign off, they just handle it, and I love that. One of the things that changes when you own a plane is you have to be able to budget time to be at the plane, to just, whether it's because you're loading databases into the plane, or you've got little chores to do, or you're doing your own oil, or you're getting a tire off so you can give it to the mechanic, whatever it happens to be. That's one of those things that completely changed. And that goes back to the open source GA idea of squawk and walk, is you don't get to do that. It's just you. And the downside of being the only one with the plane is I know who flew it last. And that may not be a good thing. So, because it's always me. So, yeah.
You know exactly how the last flight went.
I wouldn't buy a plane from this guy. Are you kidding me?
Who left all this garbage in the seat? Why did he do
Yeah.
that? Dude, is there an Arby's drive-through in the sky?
No, but like, again, coming back around to it, and then to kind of bring it home, it's all the trade-offs. You get the freedoms, but you've got to deal with a lot of mundane. I've got to go to the airport tomorrow to update our databases where they're already out. So, but that's, for me, it's kind of a break from work, and it's nice just to go out the airport and be around other airplanes. But one other comment I wanted to hit, our friend Lord Alpha Juliet. It can't be a podcast without us at least mentioning one of his comments. As a board member for our flying club and part of the maintenance team for 4 airplanes, it's like having the feeling of ownership without the benefits of ownership, and 100 partners asking for updates. And he went on to say, maybe would not recommend.
The truth.
Well, let's talk about the other elephant in the room, and that's money. When you are renting and you think, oh, this is so expensive per hour that you're spending, and then you hear people talk about actually amortizing out, let's say, the cost of the engine over the time, and it gets close to that rental cost if you're really doing it right. And I know, for instance, that Ben's getting toward the past middle age on his engine, and we've talked about budgeting the money for that, and that's not something you have to do if you're renting, and that's a chunk of money.
It is, and we're actually a little bit closer than late time. I mean, it's getting on up there. We're the plan is to go until we make metal, but of course that could happen at any point in time. But I've been fortunate enough and disciplined enough, quite frankly, to put money aside, and I am very blessed to say that I'm fully funded on my pro rata share of a refurb, reman, brand new Iran. I don't know what we're going to do.
Pick apart.
Junkyard special. Yeah.
Yeah.
Certified pick apart.
Exactly.
Pull apart. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. My goal right now is to get Stuart flying the airplane as much as possible so he can maybe increase his pro rata and reduce mine. But that has not been working out quite like I planned. But I mean, you need to come into airplane ownership with the end in mind, the end game. You're going to have to replace an engine or sell the airplane, which is, perfectly legitimate too. But you need to be conscious of that situation.
I feel very lucky that I don't even want to. I'm not even going to say what I was about to say.
Yeah, don't say it. I know what you're going to say now, and don't say it.
Yeah, don't feel grateful.
Yeah,
just take it as it comes. No, yeah. But it's absolutely incredible, especially when days like today, where I just felt like flying. It's perfect weather. I didn't have any plan. I didn't see if anybody wanted to fly with me, or I don't know, nothing like that. Even if somebody had been asking, I didn't text them. It was more like, I want to go do whatever. And I think that all of us can say, irrespective of whether you're owning or not, to even be a part of this and be certified to do this is such an incredible thing. I mean, it's completely insane that we
Yeah.
are allowed to, by the government, fly tin cans around over other people, over cities. It's unbelievable that we get to do this thing. And I don't know. It's, to me, I suppose it would be considered peak experience, that if you can do it in something that you can kind of call your own, it's, I would say, kind of a peak experience. I can say that I, as a renter, very much and completely and totally felt all of the magic of flying, and and was grateful for all of that during all of that time. And I may need to return to that modality at some point, and that's okay. But I do feel like in this side of it that I'm able to be, I don't know, fully a part of this whole thing, because you have to do everything.
Can I tell you, I had one of those moments this morning on a work call. Tomorrow will be the 6th anniversary of attaining my instrument rating, 6th year anniversary. Been flying under a private pilot license since 2018, so 7 years. I had a call this morning, and kind of the normal morning huddle calls. What'd you do this weekend? And I said this out loud, and I paused. I said, I had lunch with a friend yesterday in Suwanee, Tennessee. And I just let that sink for a minute. Yeah. And I was like, wait a minute. I would have haven't driven 3 hours to go have lunch, and then 3 hours to go back. And instead, I was gone maybe a grand total of 3 hours in total, or 4 hours in total. And that's after spending an hour and a half with you guys, or an hour with you guys. It's still, even after all this time, I can't believe that I still get to do this.
Yeah.
And if it goes away tomorrow, I will not be bitter. I've already come to the resolution that I will have enjoyed my time. I will not look back and regret that I was just fortunate to be able to do what I get to do.
Well, Ben, this is an intervention. We're here to take away your license.
Listen, if anything ever happens to the Beast to where it just needs to get parted out for some reason, I want to buy the interior, and I'm just going to make a living room out of it.
I will say the reason this comes up maybe more is because I'm getting a little closer and closer to retirement, and I keep thinking about that Alanis Morissette song. Ironic, isn't it ironic that I'm going to get to the end, and then all of a sudden I'm going to fall off of a ladder from filling my high wing airplane and break my back or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just
on the next episode.
I want to hit Prescott Flyer's comment. He says, if you can learn how to land a plane, you can learn how to do preventative maintenance. Find a good mentor. That's very true. If you are in ownership of any percentage, is learn how to do preventative maintenance. The things you can do yourself that you're comfortable doing, totally worth it. And that comes back to the collegial interpretation of 43 Appendix A of what a pilot can do with their plane. And that's one of the things I love is I'm just going to go out to the hangar. I'm going to pull apart the plane. I'm going to change the oil. I'm going to see all underneath the engine, see how beautiful things look, see if there's anything that looks weird. Just inspect the whole thing and just spend some time out there. And that's one of those things is be ready for that and enjoy that side of it.
Yeah. And you can scrape the frost off your wings like Alpha Juliet can with his fresh commercial pilot plastic card.
Yeah.
Mail on Saturday.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
The best ice scraper ever.
All right, fellas. What else do we need to cover about the trials and tribulations of aircraft? It even seems weird for me to say. What's so hard about owning an airplane? I mean, 10 years ago, I never thought that would be a thing.
Yeah.
Anything else, gentlemen, for the good of the order?
No, we're good. This has been fun.
It has been fun. And again, want to thank for a very active chat tonight. You can join us Monday nights 8 p.m. Eastern at Midlife Pilot, or I'm sorry, youtube.com at Midlife Pilot Podcast. Tonight's parting wisdom, excuse me. Don't worry about what people think. They don't do it very often. Last one. So, thank you again to everybody. Signing off, episode 118 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Goodbye, everybody.